Cool. All right, so so like we said, I run an agency in Singapore called Chili Bin. I've been in Singapore over about 20 years now. I was in Sydney for about 10 years working in the music industry until that completely fell apart. They didn't see the future. So I moved back up to Singapore, ran an e-commerce thing for a while. That failed miserably, so I started this business to essentially run some band websites. And that's been going about 10 years now. So things are all going well there. So we're on a small agency, essentially me and a team of about 6 or 7 developers, designers, VA kind of project manager types. So we use Zapier quite a lot to automate things in our business that really are just sort of mundane tasks or things that we can help make it seem a little bit bigger of an agency than we actually are. So some of the small touches, the 5%ers, the 1-2%ers that we like to do, when you're really busy running between meetings and things like that, there's a lot of help that software can provide, and especially when it comes to connecting up different systems as well. So I say Zapier, but they say Zapier. So yeah, it doesn't make any sense. There's only one P in it, so yeah. So I'll continue with Zapier. So essentially, we're going to talk about automating tasks with your WordPress website and a little bit about connecting other SaaS systems as well. We find it really helpful. I started with a free plan years and years ago and quickly went up to a paid plan. So you can connect essentially your WordPress site with thousands of other different services. I'm a bit of a glutton for shiny objects. I've tried over the past to not buy as many things on AppSumo, but I have about 35 or 40 purchases on there, and I probably use 1 or 2. So yeah, there's too many lifetime deals out there, but one thing that most of these SaaS solutions will have is a connection with Zapier. So even if they don't have other integrations that you need, the first thing that most of these companies will do is to build a Zapier integration. So you at least know that you can connect some of them, just if you have an actual use case for buying it in the first place. So yeah, we'll run through a few things here today. Basically, what is Zapier? How does it work? And we'll run through a few recipes as well, which is their kind of language for kind of connecting different apps together. So Zapier is a tool that connects different apps together, and it's built with either targets and what is it? Targets and that's the next slide. So yeah, so one of the first, I guess, apps will be your WordPress site, and then the other could be Google Sheets, or it could be anything else. So you can have targets and actions for each of those as well. So your initial target could be created a new post and draft, and your action would be send it to a Slack channel so you can get your editor to approve it. Yeah, it could be as very basic as that. And each connection is called a recipe. So this is what it looks like. Once you sign in, you can sign in with Google Apps or any of those other systems. And there should be a GIF playing. Yeah. So at the moment, there's about 1,000. Some of them are premium, some of them are free or not free to connect through. I know Salesforce, which we've connected to a whole bunch of client sites, is a premium one, so you do need to be on that plan, and a few other of those premium type services as well. But you can get around most of it with the free plan. The free plan will allow you to do 5 zaps and I think 15 actions or something like that. Is it disconnecting?
There's a little bit of flickering. Yeah, I think we might be able to push it a bit further in. It'll be fine. Just carry on. It's all good.
Okay, and how does it work? Essentially, it's a template for repeating tasks. So you have an action at the start, and then you have a target. Or a trigger, triggers and actions, right? So your trigger is a new post is created, your action would be what you want to do with that. So you pick 2 or more tasks or 2 or more apps, and then you can connect them all together. With the free plan, you get 2-step zaps, and with the paid plan, you can get multi-step zaps. So I have a zap or a recipe that has around 35, 40 different triggers in it, or different actions. It depends on the app as well. So some of them can happen immediately. On the different paid plans, they can happen every 15 or so, 15 minutes. And isn't it fantastic? All right, so what can you do with it? We try to work smarter, not harder. Like I said, we have a small team, mostly remote-based staff in the Philippines, India, China. So we're kind of always in similar time zones, but they're not always working at the same time. So we try and automate as much of this throughout the team as we can. So this allows us to expand our kind of workflow without too much additional expenditure. As a very basic example, if you go and connect your website to Zapier, this is what it comes up with as their kind of suggested recipes. So there's a few examples there, and these are pre-made ones that you can use, or you can build your own. So essentially, if you wanted to pull your Instagram photos to your WordPress blog and actually have it in a custom post type, you could do that using the fourth one down. You could tweet out your new blog post, all this stuff pretty standard. It just means that you can sort of, I guess, create or publish once, write once, and then sort of publish everywhere else. So we'll go through a couple of examples. I got about 15 examples here. I think just different use cases that I find useful. So the first one, I guess, is automatically share your posts or your content to social media. So we use this a lot for our clients as well, because they just want to sort of publish once and get that message distributed across all of their channels. So you can set it up essentially when you publish a new post. So then that status could be it's actually published, or it could be pending review, or it could be draft. So once it's set to publish, you would just essentially need to go in and connect it up to your Facebook account, your Twitter account. These could be separate zaps, or if you have a paid account, just a multi-zap, and I'll show an example of that later. You can get notifications for WordPress events. So if you're running a publishing business and you're very invested in comments and that type of feedback, you could run something there where every time you got a comment or a feedback note, you could go through and put that into your Slack channel, or even if it is into email, so that your team could be notified about any of those. The same could happen with any WooCommerce orders. So you get a new WooCommerce order, could ping into your Slack channel, your order channel, and then you'd be able to work with that. You can also connect it to other services if you wanted invoices to go out and things like that as well. You could add people to your CRM. So if you are running like at events or a publishing business, or you're running, what did I put down here? Yeah, membership site. So if you have new subscribers, you could push them into your CRM solution. So if you're using a form solution, then there's integrations with Zapier, but there's also integrations with your CRM tool. If you don't have any of that available, then this will fill the gap. We've done a site recently for a comparison website, so people that are looking for credit cards. So what we'll do is we just have a simple form that's just a PHP form, and we essentially just push that to a webhook. So that webhook will field into Zapier, and then they can push that to their affiliate channels. So you can also push WooCommerce data to your orders. So you might want to compile a list of your orders over a certain period of time. This could be for inventory tracking or any other inventory management. You could pull all this data down and go specifically straight to Google Sheets. These can be through new orders received, order status changes. So if something's been shipped out, you can trigger it that way, or line item additions as well. If you're running an online and an offline business and you want to get everything organized together in your Xero, what you can do is organize your invoices. So if you're running QuickBooks or running Xero, there any online or offline purchases that happen through, you could connect up as well. So to make sure that everything's across all your systems. You could also connect everything with Slack. I'm using Slack a lot because I'm trying very hard to get out of my inbox. So forms, I guess, are pretty much the most simplest way. Using Gravity Forms, WP Forms, Contact Forms 7 has an integration, Ninja Forms as well. Most of those are paid forms, but you'll be able to get data very easily out and into other systems. One thing we use a lot is drafting emails. So we have a whole bunch of templates that is set up. And depending on how they've come into our sales funnel or come into different parts of our business, we'll usually like to fire them off like a thank you email. So what we'll do is we have a template built up, and if they've met a certain condition, we'll push them across, and this will create a draft email. I'll go in and check those drafts, customize them, and then send them out. And I've got an example of that later as well. We also track our leads, so we do paid advertising, Facebook, Google, and also just organic SEO. So all this information, and there's a lot of it, kind of gets lost. And so we use it to track the viability of our advertising to make sure that people are still coming through. That available data is there in AdWords and it's there in analytics, but I like to sort of just have a really simple graph that basically says, you know, X amount of leads have come through Google this week, X amount of leads have come through Facebook, and just plot that out and just see how those conversions are tracking. So I pull all that data down and it goes into a simple Google spreadsheet, and then we plot that out as well. So we pull all that through. Can also connect with any automation sequences that you have. We try and write a lot of content, but we're not always as consistent as we'd like to be. So we use a Zapier that pulls all that information into a Google Calendar so we can go back over time and plan all that out. So we like to publish probably once or twice a month at the moment on that schedule. So we'll go through and we'll write out all our drafts and we'll give them specific dates. Those get plotted into Google Calendar so we can see upcoming content that's going to be happening. So this works better with a larger team where you may have an editor that's writing your content for you, but you can plan that in advance and you don't necessarily need a third-party system for that because it just appears in their calendar that this report is due on that specific date or this specific blog post. Very simply, if you are using something to build your email list, you can connect a whole bunch of different services with it. So most pop-up or form software will have integrations with your CRM, MailChimp, Aweber, and things like that, Constant Contact. But if you don't, then you can connect it with other services. And you can put it in MailChimp first and then move it into your CRM software and then send out automations that way. If you are running an events company, then if you're running an event, say on Friday next week, on Thursday, you could send out an automatic reminder that goes out to all those people, and that's just based on the date. So Zapier has a whole bunch of triggers and actions that are actually inbuilt. You can do formatting, you can do if-then-else's. So if you have specific conditions that you need to make, you can push this through as well. They also have an SMS function, but the SMS function is only in the US. But if you want to connect it with Twilio, which has an SMS service, then you can do it that way. I've got a sort of bonus slide where I annoyed a client for 6 months because they didn't pay their invoice with SMSs. So. Sorry, yeah, so there's a service called Twilio. Yeah, Twilio. And you can connect up, you essentially buy a phone number, and then from there you can connect automated SMS. One thing we do a lot is meeting follow-up. So in Singapore, I'm in cabs a lot to and from meetings. So, and I have a thank you message which essentially recaps what we went through in the meeting and says, you know, our proposal or client agreement will follow. So after every meeting, I have my Google Calendar feed that basically says meeting, then the client's name. And if the Google Calendar contains meeting, it'll create this Zap, which drafts an email in my Google Gmail. And then I just go through and customize that and basically send that out afterwards. So it's a nice, simple way of doing a follow-up where I don't necessarily have to go and copy this from somewhere else and put it back in. It's sort of already there, sitting in my drafts, ready to go. We don't do a lot of this, but it may be valuable for some brands if you do have some type of public presence. What you can do is use the Twitter function to go through your list of tweets and find anyone that mentions your brand. You can then put those people into a Google Sheet, and then from that Google Sheet you can reach out to them and say, hey, look, you're a brand advocate, we'd like to give you X, Y, and Z. So it's a good way of kind of collating all that information into another system. You could even set up automatic responders if they've mentioned your brand 5 times or something like that. And while I'm a MailChimp partner, I haven't necessarily agreed with some of their decisions lately for their new free accounts, but they sort of brought in automations, then they removed it away. It's now only 1 user for the free account, which is really annoying, trying to admin client work. But you can get around it by essentially creating your own autoresponder just in Zapier as well. So once someone signs up to your list, you can send out a 1 or 2 step Zap just in your Gmail account, setting that up pretty easily. And content curation as well. So we go through a lot of content in our RSS feeds, and I'll go through a couple of examples in the end where we can pull that information and push it to a third-party serve. So you don't want to necessarily grab everything from an RSS feed or something from Feedly, but you want to sort of curate that content, and it's easy to pull into Trello. And then if you move sort of the base from Trello to your secondary tier, then anything in that secondary tier will go out to your network. So you can do conditions like that. I pull mine into Pocket, and anything with a specific tag in Pocket will go out to my network. Boom, slam dunk. All right, I'll go through some of my favorite recipes now that we like to use. So first is a blog post promotion. So what we do whenever we write a piece of content, we have some ACF fields here. And this was a blog post that we wrote about how long it is to build a website. So what we'll do is we'll write the blog post, and at the very end of it, there's 5 tweets that we have. So there are ACF fields capped at 240 or less characters. And we essentially just grab a small snippet of each of them and push that into the system, so into Zapier. So it's a multi-step Zap that sort of happens here. So this is what it looks like now in Zapier. So you'll essentially get a new post in WordPress is the first thing there. And you can see I'm pulling through published posts. So once you've set up that first kind of trigger, then you can go through and sort of customize how the rest of that works. So what I'll do here is I use Buffer, which is a free or premium app, which connects to all my social media channels. So this is a 30-ish step Zap because each of your social networks is a separate Zap. So from this one, for my first Zap, which happens 3 days or 4 days after the first article, there's actually a delay. So once the feed comes in, I delay it for 3 days, and then I'll push this out. So this one, the first tweet that goes out is pulling from my Yoast SEO data, so you can pull that directly in here. And then the second one that will go out is after the 3 days, and that will basically pull out that first custom field automation. So that's an ACF, and then basically grabs the link, and then I alternate between 2 images, so it looks a little bit different every time I'm sharing it. So on this one, I'm pulling through the post thumbnail, and the second one, I'm pulling through the Yoast SEO image that I'll create for Facebook. So having 5 or 6 tweets over that time, it happens over about 18 days to get all that content out. So it's a very initial push to get through, and it's not really that much content that you're creating. I just sort of grab a snippet from each of the paragraphs and push that through. So it's a pretty simple way of getting that done. So yeah, so the delay is there for 3 days, and then it moves on to the next one, runs that 2 or 3 things, delays for 3 days. We also track all our leads that come in. This is not just one system, this is about 6 systems that we've connected together in about 7 or 8 different zaps, so I'll try and explain it. But essentially that first one is once a contact comes in, 1 and 1.1. So once a contact comes in on our contact form or it comes in from a Google ad form, it essentially goes into our sales pipeline, and that happens in ActiveCampaign. From there, what we'll do is we'll qualify that client, and from there, there's a step 2 that we're not using as much. We've automated that in ActiveCampaign for them to go and fill out a little bit more questionnaire, a little bit more information we need before booking a meeting. The third one there is once they've gone to our website, they've connected and they've made a meeting with us in Calendly, we'll go through and create an automatic Zoom appointment. So we Zoom for our video conferencing, so that's automatically created, and there's an email that goes out to them and says, you know, here's your appointment information. From there, what we'll do is we used to automatically generate a proposal template using Proposify. Now that's a little bit more manual because they're a little bit different. But once a proposal has been sent to the client, that'll connect all through our ActiveCampaign information, and that will send out to the client as well. And then once a proposal is won, it's not in there, but it also moves to our anti-follow-up campaign. So once we send out a proposal, they'll get a series of information over about 30 days, which basically says, look, we're awesome, look how much value we can bring to your business. So that all happens essentially with 2 or 3 touches from us. That's kind of what our deals pipeline looks like. We have unqualified leads, then waiting for scheduling, call scheduled, send proposal, and anti-follow-up. So a lot of that integration happens between Zapier and also some in ActiveCampaign as well. So that happens pretty much without many of the touches from my side. I essentially touch the client, well, speak to the client, around the call scheduled, and then I will do send the proposal. And that's kind of the 2 points that I get involved, and I'll also qualify them a bit at the start because we get a lot of agencies wanting to outsource stuff to us. The second one down is also from our live chat. So anything that happens in our live chat will get added to a deal as well, so we can push that out through, and we use Drift. So it's something we did in WP Elevation a few years ago. It's essentially, once you've set out a proposal, it's a number of touch points that you go back to them and say, look, we've sent you a proposal. There's also some other information around, you know, sending them some SEO guides. This is our process and how we work. So we're kind of sending them information every few days, and at the end of 2 weeks, we'll go basically say, are you ready to sign? Are you ready to do this? Do we need to grab on a call to go through anything in more detail? So there's 2 or 3 sales prompts throughout that, but also providing them with a little bit of value throughout that process. That's kind of another talk in itself. And we also pull everything through to our Google Sheets. So these are kind of just live deals that I pulled through this morning. So the dates, basically the client information, the deal ID. The deal ID essentially is the thing that tracks them throughout the whole system. Most of that is automated. I just need to put it into one box in my proposal software, and then the rest is all handled. And then we can see where they've come from and what they're after as well. So I pull that all through into Dasheroo. I had a problem with it this morning, so it's not graphing properly down the bottom. But I look at this pretty much every day and just see the basic business stats. So top pages, then down the bottom I'll have my lead information. Right, one thing we also do with anytime people have been reading our proposals. So we use Proposify for the most part for our proposals, and we'll use Better Proposals because it was an AppSumo deal. So what I do now is I pull this into my Slack channel. So if they've opened the email, Better Proposals will send out an email that basically says, someone is viewing your proposal. What I'll do is I'll basically pull that into my Slack channel and say client A is viewing the proposal. So I can either go through the stats or I can wait 5 minutes and give them a call and basically say, I see you've been reading our proposal, do you have any questions? So it's just a quick way of following up that way. In Proposify, the integration's a little bit better. So what I'll do there is I'll actually add some events which apply to their customer role or their deal ID in Active Campaign, so I can see how many triggers and how engaged they'll be. I'll give them an additional score on that. So if they've viewed the proposal 10 times, they're obviously a little bit more likely to purchase than someone that's just scrolled to the investment page and never come back. And then once it's won, we just send out a basically nice message to the rest of the team in Slack and start the onboarding process as well. So there's a couple of internal things that we notify the team about that we're ready to kind of start the project. Quickly going through here, automating the replies. So the first item there, after the event has ended in Google Calendar, I'll filter down and basically if it contains meeting, then I'll go through and customize a draft. So I pull through the attendee emails, everybody that's been invited to the meeting, and then I pull through a basic HTML email that basically says, recap our meeting, or I'll change that. Once I go in, it's in HTML because I like formatting, and basically it's just a boilerplate template of what I'm going to send in the proposal, and I'll just run through 3 or 4 different line items for that. For our content curation, we'll pull all that information from Feedly. So we have, plenty of different resources there. We're pulling information out, some personal ones for sport that I'm not sharing for the business, but if you are using Feedly and on a paid plan, you can pull it through into a share, and then anything that goes into that board can then go out into other systems. If you're not, then I use a Mac app called, what's it called? Reader. So I pulled through this stuff. I did a talk a couple of weeks ago about building a service business website at WordCamp Kuala Lumpur. So that just came out. So this morning I basically put it into my pocket list. If anything's tagged with share, then it will go out to my network. So yeah, and that's as basically as it is. So anything's tagged in pocket, go into buffer, I'll grab the excerpt from the RSS article, I'll grab the URL for that, and I'll go to my Facebook page. I'll probably create a delay of 1 to 2 days and then share it across Twitter and Facebook, Twitter and LinkedIn as well. And there's an image that's pulled through. And that's kind of what my my buffer account looks like. So it's added at the very bottom there, so how the right design will turn researchers into buyers, blah, blah, blah. And it's pulled through, so that's set on my buffer schedule to go out on the 30th of November. So I tweet 1 to 2 things a day in that schedule. So whatever I add to buffer just goes into the backlog and just posts automatically on that schedule. A quick bonus to annoy that client of mine. So we had a project that was delivered and actually set live before we got final payment. She part paid it and then kind of fell off the face of the earth, well, at least ghosted me. So I decided to annoy the hell out of her for a while. So I bought 2 or 3 numbers, SMS numbers, because I knew she'd probably block 1 or 2 of them. Sent an email every day, shortened the URL, which is the URL from my invoicing software, delayed it, and then sent them SMS. I did that for about 3 months. So, no. But it made me feel better, a lot better.
Did it take the website down?
No, it was well past that. It was well past that. It was a launch product, and yeah, it was a bit of a disaster project. I tend not to think about too much until just now. But that made me feel a hell of a lot happier about stuff. So quickly, some takeaways to use it to improve your workflows or anything that you do repetitively. We can essentially do over and over and again using this. Improve integrations between applications that may not have native integration, so your proposal software may not connect to your sales software, but through Zapier they can. Get control of your data, so your leads data, and make that actually usable, and then automate all the things. So very basically, their free plan will allow you 5 zaps, 2-step zaps, so you can do 2 actions. And then I'm on that starter plan for about 4 years or something now, which is perfect for me. And that's it.
Thank you, Shaan. So we have time for maybe a couple of questions before we switch to the next speaker. I'm sorry, I was wrong earlier. I said this was the last speaker before lunchtime. Actually, no, we still have another one. So.
Thanks, John. You're so organised. Can you come back to Australia and sort out all the bushfires?
I don't know what we could automate.
Was that a question
there.
or a comment?
Thank you.
Yeah, cool.
Sorry?
It's up a bit further back.
Hope it's not too much of a dumb question, but obviously the software has to have Zapier integration, or the software that you use have to have a to and from.
For the most part, it does. Depends on how familiar you are with pushing things to webhooks. You can actually create a webhook using Zapier and then push form data, a get or a post information to Zapier. They will then essentially grab that as JSON, and then you could use that somewhere else. So you don't necessarily need an API integration as long as you have a way out of your current piece of software. If you don't have those skills, then yes, you will need an integration, but there's 1,000 apps actually in the library. So most of them you'll find that should have some type of integration.
Oh, sorry. In regard to a push out.
Yep.
Can you repeat that? Sorry, I'm a bit of a novice.
Yeah. Okay. So when you're building a form, you'll have where that form needs to go to.
Yeah.
So you could use that as an action URL. So once your form is published, it will publish to a Zapier URL.
Okay.
From that Zapier URL, you'll be able to retrieve the first name, last name, email address, and so forth. So you'll be able to pull that out, and then you can use that data for other things.
Okay, thank you.
This one over here.
Hi, thank you. Excellent presentation. I do LinkedIn and Facebook ads, and then I have so many of them. I would like to aggregate all the results together.
Yep.
How would you do that?
So using UTM tracking. So whenever you generate a URL, you can go to, I think it's like utmgrabber.io or something like that. You can Google one. So whenever you're creating a link for any of your ads, add the UTM tags into it. So that will be something like the source information, where it's come, the medium, and then the content of those tags. So if you have all that information, that will flow through to your website. And there's a plugin called Handle UTM Grabber that will grab that JavaScript code essentially from your query string, so from your URL, and that will flow through the rest of your website. So I have a couple of hidden fields on my Gravity forms, which basically pulls that information in. So if someone comes to my website from Facebook, it'll essentially have Facebook in the URL as the source, and then the campaign name of what I'm doing. So it may be a discount, or it may be a promotion time. That will all flow through into my Gravity forms into a couple of hidden fields, and then that flows through into this piece of software and then gets plotted out that way. Yeah, I think HANDL, Handle UTM Grabber. But use UTM tags as much as you can to classify your links.
Cool. Thank you. I think that's all we have time for. Sorry?
Cool. All right, cool. Grab me later if you want.